Welcome to Kinky Knots Cafe, Proactive is the Way, where we provide you tools and resources to enhance your mind, body, and spirit. Get ready, folks. Let us nurture you from the inside out.
Welcome back to Proactive is the Way. Today is part 2 of our series, The Reality Shift, Dealing with Life and Unlocking Potential. I have a treat for you. Yep, I'm bringing back 2 of my favorite guests on the show, Brian Sachetta from Get Out of Your Head and Tarra Stubbins from the Take It Easy group. If you missed it, Brian Sachetta was a featured guest in February, in which I aired a special series on my social networking platforms, Facebook and Instagram at Kinky Knots Cafe, and my personal LinkedIn account, Toya Bryant. Tara was featured back in November of 2023. She joined us for Season 2, Episode 4, where we discussed owning your story. If you have not listened to either or need a refresh, make sure you go back to check them out. All right, so let's kick this shift off, the reality shift that is, with Tara, and learn how to effectively deal with life and unlock our fullest potential. We will check in with Tara and see how things have been going since the last time we met and learn about how she has been navigating life and what strategies she has developed or adopted to overcome the challenges in which she has encountered within her life. Welcome back, Tara. So glad that you could join us today.
I'm so excited to be back. And we were just chatting earlier. I can't believe it was November. It feels like yesterday, but then like 3 years ago, all at once.
Yes. It feels like yesterday and a long time ago, all at once. You're so right. This time just flies by and I don't know where it goes. I'm scared to blink anymore. No, really. I tell this all the time. I have 3 children. I'm like, I'm scared to blink. Every time I blink, one of you are out the door. I'm sorry, I have 4 children. One is already out the door. She's actually going to come back and visit us next Monday. I'm really excited about that. And then the other one, she's off to college.
Yeah.
Crazy girl, crazy.
Where does time go, right?
I don't know, but don't blink. So how's things been in your personal and your professional life?
Yeah. Well, again, I feel like I've blinked and 95,000 things have changed. So the the joys of running a business, absolutely. But I always get really excited because I'm a huge believer. We've talked about it a lot about setting goals. And it's kind of eye-opening because I talk about setting goals and staying focused and really, making sure that you don't lose sight of your goals. But then life throws these curveballs at you and you're like, how can I stay focused on this goal? But it's really empowering because when you do, you're like, oh, I can actually get through anything. And you can actually see the power of, having a goal and having a really strong vision to stick to it. And I'm sure we can talk about that more throughout the podcast. But yeah, no, life has obviously thrown me curveballs. It throws everybody curveballs. I get it, but I'm still working towards my goals, both personally and professionally.
All right, fantastic. And I'm sure as you've been working through your goals, there's been a lot of preparation. I tell folks all the time, when life throws you curveballs, best believe that subconsciously you prepare. You prepared for it. And we don't realize it until after we'll say, oh my God, that's what that experience was for. That experience that I had here that I thought I was never going to get through was for this moment right here. I don't know if people take a look and dig that deep down into the instances and circumstances of life, but it's really important to realize. And if you didn't notice it, hopefully you will notice it. But goal setting, the preparation before will help you truly get through anything, right?
No, it's true. I love that. I've never really thought about it that way. I always think like this is happening for a reason, but it's really neat to think about like, oh, I've actually been set up like for this. I'm prepared to get through this. This
Yep.
may really suck, but I'm prepared. And I had somebody tell me that one of their biggest mentors would always tell them that, there's a reason why you are getting, put in this situation, and what lesson are you going to learn from it. And I think that's what this book that you're reading also talks about, is these little gems that you collect. And it's true though. It's like, what lesson? What am I going to learn from this? How am I going to grow from this? And how am I going to be a better person from this?
Absolutely. It reminds me of a quote I just posted yesterday by Nelson Mandela. Says, I never lose. I either win or I learn. And you're right. When you're going through having these life experiences, we need to be more cognizant about what are we supposed to learn. I remember when my girlfriend, her son graduated from high school, and I remember giving him this box, and inside I put a quote. And one of the quotes was, as it relates to, it was one that I always say, in the good, the bad, the indifferent, it's all good. Learn to find the silver lining in life, right? We have to learn to find the silver lining in life and use that particular instance. And that silver lining, from my perspective, is the learning lesson, or as Ray would share, the principle that you garner from that respective experience that will help you as you advance through life and you go through your next your next mountain, so to speak. There's this guy who said, when you get to the top of one mountain, you're just at the bottom of the next. And I was like, you're so right. Right. It's just all about life, embracing reality, getting ready and prepared for the next challenge, right? Because we're going to keep and continuously have challenges. And so it's just always something very good to note. So, all right. So this is really good. I appreciate, you sharing a piece of your life with us that's very helpful. I think it really does speak to what we are going to talk about here today, embracing reality. And as we're embracing reality, how do we go about unlocking our fullest potential? And as you know, in our efforts to do well in this space and to better understand how do we do this most effectively, especially here within Proactive is the Way, we've been reading 2 books. And this month, to help strengthen our understanding of this concept, proclivities or predispositions that we lean on that may prevent us, or in the past prevented us from embracing reality and unlocking our fullest potential, and what steps we have to take in order to overcome. And so I shared earlier, Ray Dalio has his book, The Principles. I really love Ray. I think I shared with you, we're digesting his book because it's like 600 and 700. How many pages is it, girl? This is a big book. I was like, this is a whole nother, I don't even know which one to call it.
This is a year, not a month book club type thing.
You know how folks be trying to read through books and stuff really quick. I'm like, no, some books you just need to take a step back and truly digest what they're saying, so that you not only just have this knowledge, but you can actually apply it, right? And when you digest it, you have that time to kind of build strategies to see if you can apply. Is this applicable? Determine, is it applicable to my life? And then be able to apply it. But Ray, he talks about, and he shares within his book Principles, and we're focusing actually on, I think, the second book, first chapter, Embracing Reality. And he states that he compares life to a game in which each problem he faces is a puzzle that needs to be solved. And each time he solves that puzzle, he acquires a gem, a principle that helps him to avoid the same problem in the future. And by collecting these gems, it helps to improve his decision-making skills and ascend to higher levels of play, in which the game gets harder and the stakes become even greater. So help me to understand within your own life, how do you view the process of navigating life? And what strategies have you developed or adopted to overcome challenges you encounter?
Yeah, so I feel like I could talk about that question for 3.5 hours. So I have a lot of different ways that I like to navigate, kind of what life throws at us. The one thing, as we've been talking, that's resonated with me that I wanted to share is that, we're always talking about overcoming problems and what is the next problem. But it's really, really important to live in the present, or else we're always going to be worried and anxious about like, what is life going to throw at me next? And you don't want to live that way. You want to be able to own every day and live every day to the fullest. And I really try to do that. And I learned that, as we talked, last time, I had a very unique background, have a very unique background of living out on the road with many rock stars and kind of living that rock and roll lifestyle, and got a chance to experience and be part of some crazy, incredible things that I would never even have dreamt that I would be part of. VIP parties, private jets, yachts, like a backstage at the world's most biggest concerts, like all of these things. And I regret that I never actually took a moment to be like, oh, this is cool, because I was always thinking of, what do I have to do next? Now, it was my job a lot of the time to think about what has to happen next for, these celebrities and rock stars' lives. But I never took a moment to go, oh, yeah, this is really cool. It was also before social media. So there was no, oh, let's take a selfie and, remember this moment. You didn't really carry around cameras or anything like that. So another reason why I never really thought about it. Mm-hmm. So today I try to live my life of, have I actually remembered today? Do I live today? Did I have a good day? And, I'm not naive. I know that we're all adults. We have bad days, especially, I'm a business owner. I run 2 businesses, and they're large businesses. So, there's lawsuits and angry clients and angry staff, and there's just crap I have to deal with on a daily basis that could have me saying, that was a horrible day. I got sued today. That was bad. But I always try to think about it as, okay, did I spend my day really focusing and giving my 100% everything that I could give today on what I am passionate about? And what I'm passionate about is helping other people achieve their goals and running my business. That's my passion. That's what I love to do. So have I been able to do 100%, give 100% today on that? Yes. Okay. Have I been able to spend at least, 2 minutes today doing something or reflecting for myself? I think a lot of people get caught up in they read a lot of books and listen to a lot of gurus that say you have to spend like an hour meditating in the morning or journaling or in the evening doing all these like self-care things, which is really great. If that works for you, please do it. But a lot of people get really stressed out that they can't fit that all those things into their day. They have other things. They have kids that they have to get ready to go to school. They are working on their side hustle at night, all of these things. Right. So they don't do anything for themselves. And, I love kind of waking up and getting right to work. So I always, go, okay, like, did I spend an extra 2 minutes enjoying my nice warm cup of coffee, or spending a little extra time with my cats today, or, doing something? Okay, yes, I've done that. Mm-hmm. And then I always like to say, have I been able to reach out or talk to at least one person that I love and care about? And not forcefully, oh crap, I haven't done this on my list, but actually genuinely been able to reach out and talk to somebody that I love and care about. And sometimes that's my cats, my poor husband. But, sometimes it's, yes, I've been able to, spend again more time with my cats or something today. So I really like to be able to measure my days in that and be able to kind of live in the present rather than always thinking, okay, what's the next problem that life's going to throw at me?
Absolutely. Because it's going to come regardless. You don't even have to think about it, right? Like I was just sharing, once you've reached the top of one mountain, you're going to be starting the next. You don't even think about that. I love that, staying in the present. I like the idea making time for self. And when you're making time for self, if you need strategies, it's great, but don't follow the Joneses to design your life. You really have to build your life around what makes sense for you, right? And don't get stressed out about it. I like that. Spend 2 minutes reflecting and that works for you, then so be it.
It's one of my biggest pet peeves, and being kind of in the productivity space is everybody tries to copy what the most popular book of that time is, or the most popular documentary or podcast. And I think that it's amazing. Listen, I love reading a good productivity book, or, everything, listening to podcasts. It's actually what keeps me and helps me stay motivated. And I love the ideas that come from it. But I don't copy absolutely everything that they tell me to do. That works for them and their specific lifestyle. It doesn't work for me. I like taking little nuggets and figuring out what works best for me. And also being adaptable. What may work for me in this stage of my life may not work for me 3 months down the road, because things have changed. Things have become different. My goals may have changed. My priorities may have changed. So I feel like people get stuck in a routine, and then they go, oh, well, I'm bad at setting goals, or I'm horrible at a morning routine. But it's because they're trying to copy other people's.
Yes, do what works for you. I love that. I really like that a lot. In our last podcast, Tiffany had asked me the question, and I like your idea about goal setting and making sure you're meeting your goals. She had asked the question. She's like, well, how do we define success? Because you commented, as I was growing up, I was a people pleaser. I always did what everybody told me to do. And I was told I was too. We were people pleasers. Our parents told us what to do. We did it. We were followers, actually. And it was helpful. It was helpful to hear that she had that experience. But she said as she was going through life, she didn't know how to define success. We were always defining success on how people perceived our growth, right? And we didn't necessarily have to do that. And success is about defining what your goals are. I shared this. It's about your goals too, and if you set your goals and you're meeting your goals, that's success for you. We don't have to sit up there and be like, I'm not, you call it the Beyonce of your life. You don't have to be Beyonce. You can be kind of like Beyonce, but you don't have to be Beyonce, right? You make your own Beyonce, and whatever works for you, works for you. And don't get caught up on that, because we can lose ourselves in that and never accomplish, like you said, end up, what do they call, paralyzing ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? Never accomplishing anything. So that's a beautiful thing. And I'm glad that you shared that with us. I like your little 3-pronged approach there. And just to go back over that, folks, her number 1 was just living in the present moment. I love that. Number 2, I really like the fact that you dedicate time for yourself. I think that's so important. Folks always talk about you can't pour from an empty cup. And some folks will say, no, you'll be refilled. I'm like, no, but you got to make time to be refilled so that you can continue to serve and give back to others. And then your third, always reaching out, making sure you're keeping those connections alive. I really, really like that. Thanks for sharing that.
Don't you love her energy? It is so infectious. All right. So let's recap Tarra's 3-pronged approach. Number 1, live in the present moment. Number 2, self-care is so important. Definitely make sure you dedicate time for yourself. And number 3, connections. Make sure you are making the proper connections with your network, which includes family and friends. All right, let's connect with Brian and hear his thoughts.
I want to start off and just say that, kind of in the spirit of one of Ray Dalio's principles that you just touched upon, which is embrace reality and deal with it, right? I think we have to state that, life is hard. There's a lot of things that happen to all of us that we don't wish for, we don't ask for. there, even just when you become an adult, right? It's like you have to get into the working world, make money, put food on the table, support your family. Life can be challenging. There's obviously a lot of ups and downs, and I don't want to be too negative, right? But you deal with maybe health issues, maybe your loved ones get sick or something like that, right? There's so many challenges in life that befall us, and also it's just hard for us to necessarily like talk about each one or list all of them out, right? You talk to any given person, we all have our struggles. At the same time, right? I think so there's the going back to the embrace reality and deal with it, right? Is like, so that's a fact that, what I just said of like life being difficult. But at the same time, we don't want to wallow in that, right? Because if we do, we'll probably never actually like get to where we want to get to or do anything, right? So how do we prevent that notion from stopping us in our tracks? And I think a way of looking at that might be say like, okay, so that is a reality of life, that life is hard. At the same time, it doesn't mean that life's impossible and that we can never get to where we want to go to. It kind of puts a little bit of like a sobering lens on our eyes of saying like, I can get to where I want to go to, but I have to know that there will be challenges along the way. And I am the kind of person, right? So in terms of navigating life and thinking about a perspective, right? I try to be sort of even keeled, level-headed, if you will, right? Where you can look at any statement and kind of how the lens at which people come at it through, right? So some people may come at life and say, life's amazing and everything's perfect and awesome, whatever. If that works for you, that works for you, right? And I'm not trying to cut anybody down here. If that's your approach and it works, that's awesome. For me, I feel like a strategy or an outlook like that tends to lead to disappointment, right? When you inevitably face those difficulties in life, if you say to yourself, like, life's amazing, life is perfect, you may hit those difficulties and then be like, wait a second, life isn't amazing, life isn't perfect. What do I do now, right? So you almost go from one side of the pendulum to the other, where you're like, you were wildly optimistic, and now you're kind of, you have all this evidence contrary to your previous belief that maybe you're tipping in the opposite direction. So what I like to do, right, the sort of just a general life philosophy is like stay in the middle, right? Stay even keeled in the sense that knowing that, yes, life has its amazing parts and its awesome parts. It also has its grim and dark and terrible parts, right? Somewhere, you take those two, you add them together, you divide by two, you get the average, which is basically just saying that life is amazing in some regards and it's difficult in others. And you try to steer yourself as close as you can to those good parts while knowing that, you may face challenges and difficulties along the way, but that's okay. Because then when you do, you will say, this is how it is supposed to be or how it can be at times. And you won't get discouraged in the face of that.
Right. It almost sounds like one of my finance classes where we talked about in our economics, the economy, right? In everything in life, if you think about it, there's ebb and flows, right? So you're going to have the goods, you're going to have the bads, but it's all about how you manage and you deal with it when the respective issue, good or bad, comes into play. So that while you were speaking, all I was thinking about was my finance teacher talking to me about just how, it's everywhere, right? Ebb and flows, and it's all about how we manage it. And I like that you said balance. We can find a balance, that in between, because the reality is it's not always good. It's definitely not always bad, but you had those bad ones that almost sometimes outweigh the good. But if you have the capabilities to, I call it, come back to, I guess, reality, and bring things back to when things were well, or bring things back to when you were able to digest things and life was good. Let me back up. So the reason why I shared this is because in reality, you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days. But if you have the capability to bring things back home, and I'll give you an example. Right now, over the past 10 years, I have been experiencing absolute hell. Okay. Just being, judged, and I don't mind being judged, but judged and condemned, for certain beliefs or the way that I carry myself or my life in general. And within that, you tend to encounter individuals who are like passive aggressive, and they have these microaggressions that they do on a daily basis. And while I'm trying to maintain who I am, my character of trying to just be genuinely good to people, it was like nonstop. And all I kept doing throughout these past 10 years that has kind of held it all together was finding that moment or those moments when I saw the good in people, when I saw the good within my life experiences. And that balance allowed me to overcome the experience that I was going through. And each day I woke up like refreshed, saying, okay, whatever is thrown at me today, we're just going to act like it's all new, and we're just going to, embrace it and deal with it as it comes without, because, people have the tendency, if someone hurt you, for example, if someone hurt you, and I'll do a white and black thing because I see it a lot when we deal with racism and things of that nature. If this white woman hurt me, all of a sudden I'm mad at every white woman, right? And I don't like to live my life like that, right? I just feel like, when we talk about navigating life and building strategies to help us overcome these challenges, we have to be mindful that it's not always like this. It's we have to take it individually, take each individual individually, and we cannot be biased towards someone just because of an experience that we had the day before. And so, it was just something as you were going through the flow, it just made me think of finance. And it also made me think about just personally how I've gone through some of the challenges within my life to try and overcome and approach each day as if it was a new day.
For sure. And thank you for sharing. I'm sorry that you've had to go through that. That's very difficult. My guess, right? Like just knowing you briefly, right? And knowing your personality, like what kind of came to mind as you were saying that, right? Is like in those situations, right? If somebody is hurting us, abusing us, just not being nice to us, whatever, they are subconsciously like trying to pull us down to their level, right? They're trying to pull us into the mud, so to speak. And we have the option to go there, right? We have the option to be like, I'm going to fight fire with fire. I'm going to go into the mud. I think the difficulty though, right, is like, we don't actually want to go there because we don't want to be like them, right? It might help us feel good in the moment, but to your point, right, you sometimes what you're going through colors your view of the world, right? And so maybe you're saying, I'm going through this 10 years of difficulty. Maybe like this is just how life is and it's difficult and it's terrible and it's awful or whatever, right? But being able to reconnect back to those good moments helps you, like it's, your brain is always playing these tricks on you. And so it's playing a trick on you when it's saying, hey, I'm looking at this bad evidence and then making this projection out into the larger world and saying everything or every X, right, is like this. It's a defense mechanism meant to be like, oh, if I go out into the world and I experience this again, I will know how to deal with it. But it's not actually a good defense mechanism because that's just not how the world really is, right? So we sort of extrapolate these subconsciously. We extrapolate these, I don't know what you want to call them, evaluations out, and then we put a new filter out on, lens out on the world, and that is not all that helpful in the long run. But kudos to you for not dropping down to that level and being able to reconnect to what you see out there, which is good, like being able to see the good in the world and then being like, you know what, in spite of all that I'm going through, in spite of what people are throwing at me, I refuse to go down to that level. It makes you like, it's, I never you don't want to glamorize difficulty because it's hard. At the same time, however, I think after you've been through it, you can look back at it and say, I wouldn't want to go through it again, but it did change me and it probably made me a better, stronger person, if that makes sense.
Complete sense. It did make me a stronger person. It allowed me to understand that a lot of individuals project their feelings And their projection can come from a circumstance or situation that had no dealings with me. And it allowed me to always put myself in their shoes and say, even if I didn't know them, they probably could have always been very cruel and mean, but I still would put myself in folks' shoes and say, you know what? I don't know what your life was like when you were a child. You probably had it really hard for you to select me as your punching bag for today. I'm going to give a little bit of grace. I say that to everyone. I'm like, I give you some grace because I don't know the full story. We always have pieces of the story, like prophecy. Prophecy is never given fully. It's always given in pieces. And so we'll never know the truth. And how do I, from a strategic perspective, want to embrace the realities of my life is I want to ensure that I'm being cognizant that there's a bigger story that might be there that I don't know. And so this is something my boss used to tell me. He said, Toya, he's like, this is going to be a tough environment. I worked in an environment where we did a lot of reductions in force, and I was unfortunately the Grim Reaper. And so he said, no matter what folks, how they approach you, what they think about you, what they say about you, assume positive intent. And so, and not that I'm, giving folks a pass, if you will, but I'm just, going to give folks grace a little bit more until I can see the full picture. Because we don't always see the full picture, but we're quick to react. And so I've become an individual who's less reactive and I more observant, right? And that in itself has strengthened me. You were talking about, over the past 10 years, that experience has strengthened me. Yes, it's allowed me to look at a lot of things objectively, and I really do walk in this state of mind where each day is a new day. You may have treated me bad yesterday, but I'm going to see what you do today, and just gather that data. And one of the things that I've learned going through that process of just how to deal with people and build relationships was whether or not it was someone that I needed to treat with a long-handled spoon, as my father would say, be cordial, but try to disassociate. Or if, they were genuinely going through something and I was just at the end of that experience and they felt compelled to leverage me as someone to help them feel better about themselves.
I love this piece, learning about the realities of life and the need for balance and focusing on the positive aspects of life to uplift and ground you to overcome and approach each day as if it is a new day. In my next line of questioning, I wanted to better understand this notion of stretch assignments. Ray shares that he often puts himself in positions that will challenge him to the point of failure. And in doing so, it creates a learner's high as he comes up with new inventions to move forward. Let's connect back with Brian as we shift gears and discuss this idea of stretch assignments, the one he pursued, and the emotional roller coaster he endured.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. There are very few ideas that Dalio puts forth in his book that I can argue with. I mean, he's super smart, one of the brightest financial minds of all time. Like, if anything, I feel like I should sit here and, praise him, right? He's super smart, smarter than I'll ever be. In terms of, taking on challenges and stretch goals and stuff like that, a lot of different ideas bouncing around my head. Tony Robbins will often say that, you're either growing or you're dying, right? Which is basically like, if you're not challenging yourself, if you're not stretching yourself, you may not necessarily be like physically dying, right? But like metaphorically speaking, you are, you're withering away a little bit. And there's also kind of a notion. So I'm gonna mispronounce his name. It's Nassim Nicholas Talib, I believe his name is. Famous author, does a lot of financial writing, but also some self-help books. He talks about in his book, which a lot of people are familiar with these days, I think it's called anti-fragile or anti-fragility. At the very least, the concept is called anti-fragility. So it's the notion that like some things in this world are fragile, right? So you take a glass bowl outside, you drop it on the pavement, bam, like that's a fragile bowl. It shatters. Some people are resilient, where basically, you put them through difficulty and they will struggle, but then they will get better over time. They will figure out how to deal with it, right? They'll bounce back. There's sort of a third category, which is anti-fragile, which is sort of a word that describes people or things that need difficulties and challenges in order to thrive and grow and all that. So you look at children, right? And it's like children, like a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old is always running around the house, jumping off the couch, scraping his knees, getting boo-boos and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to say to the kid, like, just sit down and stop, but that's how they learn and explore, figure out the world a little bit, and then start growing into a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, whatever it is. So I think that basic philosophical concept applies here, where it's basically like, if you look at all of us, right? You say, a lot of people will say, I can't wait to retire and sit on a beach and do nothing all day. And hey, maybe for some people that is what they really want. And I'm open to that. I just know that for myself and for many people that I know, we could do that for like a day, a week, maybe a couple weeks. And then we would very quickly be so darn miserable, right? And it's just the fact that like we are predisposed to want growth and challenge. And if we don't have that, we will fall apart, much like the glass bowl does when we drop it on the sidewalk. So I know that that is sort of a core tenet of most people's lives and also mine. So I try to, build my life or structure my life in a fashion that is bringing me challenges. Some days it's easier than others. It's like, especially as you get older, right? You have a very busy schedule, and then all of a sudden the challenges, like maybe they don't fit in as much, right? But I do kind of go back to, just as one concrete example. So, it's always tough to give examples that center around yourself, because I'm not a self-centered person. I don't like, tooting my own horn, but it's just an example. So when I wrote my first book, I was very eager to be done with it. And I also just didn't know anything about writing and publishing and all that, right? So I was kind of like, the second that I feel as though I am complete on the manuscript, I'm gonna publish it, right? And now knowing it's like, okay, well, yeah, maybe slow down and do a little bit more editing, do some marketing, like sit on the manuscript for like 3 to 6 months, whatever. Anyway, I was like, okay, with that in mind, I'm looking out a couple months and I'm saying to myself, I think if I really pushed myself, I could finish the manuscript in that time, and then I can publish it, right? And I'm self-published, so I knew that once I had a finished product, I could just hit the button and upload it. And in some ways, it's funny because the moral of this story is like, it's a little bit, I don't know, ambiguous at the end, but it'll make sense when I get there. So, I worked very hard day and night on this manuscript. There was many nights where like I saw the sun come up, and I don't have that in me anymore, like that kind of energy. I'm, when I wrote the first book, I was like 26. Now I'm 34. Just, I don't have that kind of, I'm still passionate about the work, but like, I don't know, I was still, had that kid energy, if you will. And so I really put in the midnight oil, or was burning the midnight oil, put in the hard work, all that. Where I'm going with this story is basically saying that, the deadline to actually publish the book, which you have to declare it in Amazon. If you want to do a pre-order, you have to say like, it's going to be out on this day. And okay, because again, I didn't build in any time for marketing or whatever, I was like, that's the hard and fast deadline, because if that date passes and I don't have the manuscript, like Amazon, they penalize you. Basically, you can never do another pre-order again, yada, yada. Like they send an email out to all your pre-ordered customers, and they're like, this, basically shaming the author, which is fair. But I was like, okay, I'm setting myself up for that. And I did reach the deadline, and I submitted the book, and, I published it. I did, maybe a few months later, I was like, okay, I missed a few commas. I'm going to go back and I'm going to update it or whatever. Why I tell that story is to say, so there's this thing called Parkinson's law, which I'm going to try to fudge it right now, and basically say that Parkinson's law states that the task that you have in front of you grows or shrinks to fill the amount of time that you have, right? So another way of looking at this is saying, if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person, right? Because if it's like, hey, you got 3 months to do one simple thing, you'll probably take all 3 months and you probably won't even do that great of a job with it. Whereas if you are busy and not overwhelmingly busy, but you are just busy, you're just cranking out tasks, somebody gives you something else, you just kind of check it off and you go, right? So where I'm going with the story is basically saying that it is advantageous to have a stretch goal like that and to have a deadline. At the same time, right? Nobody is, including myself, nobody is recommending that you set a goal that is such a stretch for yourself that it is completely unrealistic, right? So maybe in hindsight, I would say to myself, I could have used another couple weeks on that manuscript. However, the advantage or the upshot of that is that I did actually get the manuscript out, right? And so looking at it from the other perspective, if I said, I'll take a couple years, I'll figure it out, eventually I'll publish the manuscript, like it may never have happened. So having that sort of sense of drive, sense of urgency can be good. It lights a fire under us and eventually gets us to follow through with our commitment. So I think that is important. And I've given a lot of different anecdotes, examples, whatever. So I'll pause there.
Yeah, no, I really like the fact that you pushed yourself. You at least gave yourself a deadline to get it out. I am a proponent of getting things done. And what I mean by that is once I am assigned a project and I have my deadline date, going to push to get it done. If there are some pieces, and of course, we don't want to make sure there's major pieces that are not fully flushed out, I'm still moving forward. And I tell my sister this quote all the time, I oftentimes will be building the plane while I'm flying it. And that's because I really just want to get, if I have a goal and want to get something done, you want to get it done, and that's okay. As you were speaking, you reminded me of Darius, our author. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about him here in a moment, but one of the authors that we're reading this month, but he talked about this book that he wrote. He stated that when he first published it, it wasn't even this name that he currently has, the Win Your Inner Battles. It was it actually was not an intriguing name at all, if I could be candid. I was like, yeah, why did you name it that? But he said he published it with that. But he said, after some years later, he decided to come back and do a revision on it. And that's common in the world of writing, right? That we are at a certain place at a point in time within our life, and the way that we understood and conceptualized things, etc., made sense. But then as time went on, we grew and we learned and we heard different things and we went to different symposiums and read different books, and now our viewpoint might have changed. I share this because I think it hits the point with regards to what Ray Dalio said as it relates to evolution. Or, as you mentioned, Tony Robbins stated, if you don't evolve, you die. And so it's a common place that we may put something together and it is a work of art. I'll give an example like the Bible. It is a work of art, but as time progresses, and moves forward and you have different technologies, different scientific discoveries, etc., it is okay to take a look at that and say, okay, does this make sense for now? Or is there opportunities to improve and expound on the teachings? And so, I just wanted to share that with you to say kudos to you for just going ahead and getting it done. I'm sure that, and the other piece is that we don't know 24/7 what's in your head, right? If you were to put it out anyways, just like if someone does a presentation, I tell folks all the time, if you're doing a presentation and you mess up, nobody is really going to know unless they had your written script word for word. They're not going to know. So if you could edit and play, and it's okay. and no one's going to know. It's like an actor, right? Or an actress. When they're on the screen, they're on the set and they got to remember their lines and then they forget their lines. What do? They ad lib, right? They throw in something and sometimes it's better. It's better than what was written. I mean, and that's okay. So I just thought I'd share that with you. So it sounds to me, I didn't hear one thing that I wanted to understand was how did you feel as you were going through that respective stretch assignment? I know you said, okay, I had a deadline, etc. But Ray talks about the fact that when we're going through this process of doing stretch assignments, it brings out all these different emotions that we should learn to reconcile these emotions and ensure that we're reconciling it with logic and act when in alignment is how he put it. And so I want to understand your emotions, the process that you went through in order to overcome some of the emotions that you experienced as you were going through that process.
Yeah, a few emotions, right? So the first one, to be like totally candid, going back to the idea of the actual schedule and the deadline that I set for myself, there was most certainly a sense of like hair on fire / overwhelm / why did I put myself in this situation?
Okay.
But that is, I don't want to say it's par for the course with a stretch goal, but it is a risk that you run, right? Because if we're on a spectrum of 0 being, not stressful at all and 10 being way too stressful, a stretch goal is not like a 5. It's maybe like a 7 or an 8. But if you miss by 10%, you're in that zone of being way too overwhelmed, right? So I kind of feel like I was there. At the same time, I was so passionate about what I was doing that I was willing to stay up until dawn. I was willing to put in those crazy hours because I felt like the first book was it was centered around anxiety, and I felt as though I had experienced a lot of anxiety and had figured, I hadn't figured it all out, but I had I had sort of charted a path forward for myself, and I was excited to share that with people because I know how difficult dealing with anxiety can be. And so the saving grace, or whatever I'm trying to think of the right term, what helped me get through the difficulty of the overwhelm of like, oh man, I set far too ambitious of a deadline for myself, was knowing that like on the other side of this, people, maybe it's not a million people, but there's going to be a kid in his dorm room who reads this and reads the stories that I put in the book about being in college and going through these struggles. And he's going to say, wow, this person gets what I'm going through. And then that person, like my reader, is also like, these tactics resonate with me. These philosophies, ways of looking at anxiety resonate with me, and they're helping me in my life. And that was like what really got me kind of that spark going. So a lot of different emotions in there. I know I only covered a couple, but like, when you're in that hair on fire kind of state, like your mind's going a million miles a minute. There's all sorts of emotions. And I guess to put a nice bow on this was there's the notion of like the feeling of a job well done, or however you want to phrase it. Again, I'm not going to say that I put out the perfect manuscript, but I was like, you know what? I toiled very hard with this thing. And on the other side of the deadline, even if it wasn't perfect, there was a sense of achievement, right? Of saying, hey, I set out to do this thing. And maybe I didn't do it 100%, but I got 95% of the way there. And that is something to be proud of. It's not something to like, go shout from the rooftops or whatever, but it was still something to be proud of. And I remember actually just sort of a last piece was, so I had this deadline, of like, you set it in your Amazon account, they give you a date and a time. And so it was a Saturday and it was due at, I don't know, maybe 8 p.m. or something like that on a Saturday night. And I actually calculated it wrong. It was 8 p.m. Central Time and I'm in Eastern Time. So it was actually like I had one less hour than I thought I did. So I was like, all right, I'm going to wake up on Saturday. I'm going to crank through this manuscript again. I'm going to like fix anything that's glaring, that comes up, whatever. And then I kind of did that, but I was like, I got to go back through, and I'm looking at the clock and I'm like, I got like 4 hours left or 2 hours left. And then at some point it hit me. I was like, wow, I thought I had 2. I actually have 1 hour. And your brain, just when you're in that much of franticness or whatever, like you go into this crazy state. And I actually remember my friends were out at a bar, like kind of this whole time, like day drinking or whatever. And I was like, I'll catch up with you later. And then I was so frantic. I finally submitted the manuscript, even though I had one less hour than I thought I did, hit the button, closed the computer, went out to the bar with my friends. And I was just like, I remember it felt like I emerged from a cave, and I'm joining my friends at the bar and they're like, hey, where were you all day? And I'm like, I have no idea, dude. Like I was somewhere in my mind, and being at this bar right now feels like a dream. It feels surreal, So I don't know. Sometimes it's fun to do that, to push yourself and experience that achievement on the other side. Sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming. So I would say for me, it was a combination of the two.
Now you went through that respective experience. How have you leveraged that moment in other assignments or other initiatives that you've taken on in terms of how you manage certain initiatives?
Yeah, I think a couple things, right? So just to speak to the writing specifically, so put out another book in 2021, and I was eager to get that done, but it was not the same. Like I knew that I couldn't put myself through that sort of stress again. And I also wanted to make sure, right? I was like, I want to be confident that when I hit the button, the manuscript is actually done versus like it's sort of artificially done. Maybe I'm missing 5% just because the deadline is the deadline. So I have given myself a little bit more leeway, a little bit more grace. Again, this is not to basically counteract everything I just said in terms of the benefit of a deadline. But I think for me, knowing that I already had lots of blog posts out there and one book already took the pressure off a little bit to be like, I don't have to rush to get this second book out there. I'm still eager to get it out there, but it doesn't need to happen right now. The only sort of counterpoint to that is the fact that like I'm still very passionate about this space, right? About helping people with mental health. And just as I've gotten older and, it's like I sit on the board of my condo, I have a bunch of different side projects that I have to help out with. It's like time has become even more scarce. And the challenge, I guess, right, is like I still want to push content out there, but I have less and less and less time. And so I'm trying to figure out like, how can I steal some time back? Because I still want to get stuff out there. That's kind of my challenge, I think, right now. And I'm still working through it a little bit.
I loved when he challenged himself to write his first book, being candid and sharing the mistakes he made, but was able to leverage this experience to help him get out of his head, overcome his mistakes, and do it again. We will wrap up with Tarra as she shares her views on stretch goals and an assignment she pursued and how she and her team reconciled their emotions by embracing reality, leveraging strategy, and Tarra's ability to inspire and guide her team into overcoming and turning a prior disastrous year into finding success within the Take It Easy groups next quarter. The very next quarter, they found success, y'all. Let's take a listen.
Yeah, I am the biggest believer in stretch goals. I believe that they foster innovation. They actually help us improve and grow in life. Nobody wants a goal that we can achieve in, a day and a half. Of course, there's like miniature goals that you want to achieve, daily, but like a big goal in life, you don't want it to be too easy. So I am absolutely a massive supporter in stretch goals, and I set them all the time, and they grow bigger and bigger because I'm like, oh, I didn't think I was actually going to achieve that. And look at this, I achieved it. So let's set something even bigger this time. Right. It was interesting. I was on a podcast a few months ago and I was talking about stretch goals, and the host fought me on it. And he said that he doesn't believe in stretch goals because people will set too big of them. Like, I want to be an astronaut by the end of the year. And I said, of course, that's not a great goal for, if you don't have any, experience being an astronaut to then all of a sudden think that you're going to space. I completely understand that. So there's a limit, of course, to stretch goals. And so I have a kind of a theory of an exercise that I like to walk clients through of, how to actually set the right size of goal. And I personally believe that the size of goal is the most important aspect of the goal. So yes, it has to be timely. Yes, it has to be specific. Yes, it has to be measurable. But the size of it is what I truly believe is what's going to allow you to hit it or not, and to keep your own motivation while you're doing it. So I like people to write out their goal, whatever it is, and make sure that it's specific. So it's not just, I want to be rich, but, I want to make $1 million by the end of 2024. And then I like people to write their why. So we were talking about kind of our vision and our goal and knowing our story in the last podcast. So like, why is this your goal? Why is this specific to you, your individuality and your own story?
Right.
And then I always like to ask people to then write down, and this is something that people forget to do when they're setting goals, is all the blockers that are going to stop you from achieving that goal. So I want to go to space. Well, I'm scared of heights. I've never, all of these things. And then you can reflect on it and go, okay, is this a goal that I can actually get over all of these blockers and achieve this goal? Or are all of these blockers going to stop me? And if you look at all those blockers and think there is no way I can create any type of motivation to get me over these humps and to get me to achieving these goals, then the goal you've set is a little too much of a stretch. Right. Doesn't say you're never going to ever achieve it, but maybe you should break it down into achieving one of the blockers first, and then, allowing those blockers to actually be the building blocks for your bigger goal. Right. If you look at them in your goal and your blockers and think, yeah, I can get over this. This is going to be hard, but like, I feel they're motivating and I can see that, this one blocker is going to be really hard, but I can do it. Then you know that you've actually created the motivation that you can and will achieve your big stretch goal. I did it for my staff actually and my company in 2024. We had a bit of a crappy end of 2023. We had a massive reshuffle in our leadership. We lost a whole bunch of clients because of things that we were not doing properly internally. And we shifted in January of 2024. And the way that I shifted it was I said, we're going to hit this massive goal that we have never hit before in the history of our company. And sure, we've had a downward spiral, but we are going to change that by concentrating 100% on this upward momentum. And yeah, it scared people. It really scared people. They thought that I was insane, but we are more than halfway through achieving our goal for the year. And it's not even halfway through the year. So people are more motivated to work towards that goal instead of being caught in that kind of depression. This company is failing. What are we doing wrong? They all bound together and created this awesome environment to, teamwork and to create this massively successful company again.
Right. I like how you leverage the SMART principle in order to, and not only within your clients, but also within your own company to help you find success or redefine what success is going to look like for your company. I love that you use that. And then secondary, that you were not, that you were open and receptive to taking a step back and saying, hey, how can we become better, right? So looking at what are your challenges, where were your failures, and then restructuring your business in order to find success. And I think you shared earlier, people are just fearful I guess that when they go off track or feel like they're going off track, that they can't get back on it. But if you, like you did, take a strategic approach to saying, okay, where are we? And where do we want to be? And then really starting to define that. And if it is in that, you have to take a step back or you have to restructure, going ahead and doing that, right? Going ahead and digesting that pain point so that you can then move forward. And it's okay. It's okay that sometimes we have to take a step back. Even in my own business, I'm like, I got to take a step back because there's some other things that I need to get done in order for me to be able to truly propel this. And maybe I'm off market for, 2-3 months, but that doesn't stop me from coming back. Right. And for you, I like that you said, you was like, yes, we didn't do well, but we're about to go bigger. Yeah, I know that scared a whole lot of folks. They're like, wait a second, because what is natural is when things are not going well, right? You just take a step back completely, but you're like, nope, we've already gone through. We've already done the assessment. We know where we failed. We know our blind spots. Now I know how we can be successful. Let's give ourselves a little challenge. I like
Yeah,
that.
we've learned our lessons. We have our gems. We have our principles. We
Right.
learned them. So let's take those and run with them.
Yeah.
Let's turn up the volume now.
I would be scared too, but I was all for you because the power of a leader. If the leader can envision it and really has within their heart and it knows, oh my God, those were just some setbacks, but we do have the capability and can put that vision forward and then inspire you through your words and also through your being strategic, right? You can't just be a whole bunch of talking. You're not really sitting down and being strategic about it, but you're being strategic about it. Yeah, I'm all for you. So kudos to you. Yeah, I do. And what did you say? You already met your goals halfway
Yeah,
through?
we're already past we're already halfway, more than half, and it's not even halfway through the year yet. It's almost, but
You feel like you
yeah, so
challenged
we're on target.
yourself enough?
What's that?
You feel like you challenged yourself enough?
Yes, because yes.
You're like, no, that was enough.
There is definitely a stretch. Yes. Lots of learning lessons that have happened. And again, I feel like if we set any bigger of a goal, my whole kind of one of my biggest lessons that I've learned from working with celebrities is that successful people create their own motivation. A lot of people wait for the lightning strike moment to happen, and that's not coming. You have to create it for you. And successful people do. People who struggle for success can't, and they don't. And they need to find ways to actually create their own motivation. And so you can do that through setting the right size goals. And, if you set too big of a goal, it's going to be really hard to create your own motivation day after day. If you set too small of a goal, it's going to be way too easy. And you're going to feel like, well, I don't have to stretch. I don't have to work towards that. I can just accomplish that tomorrow. So then you're still not going to create your own motivation. So, I always say that I can sum up all of these podcasts in, 4 words, and that is just do the thing. And that's what we all have to do, is we all kind of know what we have to do. It's just trying to get past those blockers to just do it. And there's millions of different techniques, and knowing which one is good for you and not trying to copy, what we were talking about before, what other people are doing is really the way to kind of push past those blockers and really be able to just do the thing and push towards success. So if I had created an even bigger goal, I think my team would have all quit and it would have just been me pushing towards the goal. It was still a bit of a fight to get here, but I absolutely love that we proved that we can do it. And yeah, just the morale and everything is so big and strong, and it's kind of done what we wanted it to do. And yeah, I'm going to set an even bigger goal next year, of course.
Okay, very good. Well, you talked about, and this is as a great segue into our last question, was regards to emotions. in that process when you do take on stretch assignments, how it is scary. Your team was like, what? Are you crazy? We just went through HE double hockey sticks in 2023 and you trying to do what? Right. So he talks about the fact that stretch assignments, they're scary. It brings out so many emotions that if we don't reconcile these emotions with logic, which is what you did, right? You leverage strategy and act when in alignment, our emotions can hurt us. And so, I'm glad to hear that as you guys were going through that you did have fear. There's, you encountered fear, but you did leverage logic, right? And that's where you came out with your handy dandy tools and your expertise for over 20 years building a company. And you said, hey, this is how we will get through this, right? And taking a look at your blockers. I love that. Blockers. Girl, because we all got them, right? We got something blocking us from trying to get somewhere, right? This is not the most bass awkward, no. And I'm about to go off script real quick, but it made me think about how I always say this, to my mom or to my sister. I was like, I'm a good person. And I am doing things that are positive. So you would think that if I'm doing things that are positive and I'm moving in a direction that is helpful and it's productive and I'm trying to be a good steward to society, I'm supposed to get that back.
Yeah.
Why is life not reciprocated here?
Yeah.
Why is it that we are always pushing against some grain? And and I was just like, and I guess because number one, I feel like we have to be challenged to see if it really is something that is genuinely within us and if we can overcome wherever that energy comes from. It drives me freaking bananas. But I get it. If we was not challenged, would we grow? Will we push ourselves further from where we are today? Probably not, I'm assuming. What do you think about that?
No, it's so true. I knew exactly what you were going to say when you started because I think about it a lot too. And it's like, why does it seem like other people, and, I'm surrounded by celebrities. So why does it seem like their life and their road to success was so easy? And why am I struggling on this, day-to-day basis of like trying to hit the next level? And I really truly believe it's all what you set out to do on a day-to-day basis and kind of how you live in the present. So we can always think about, what went wrong, what this challenge is, what's coming next. But we can also think about, that was a good day because this and this and this happened. And it's just kind of shifting your tone and always, again, trying to be your own individual. So what is a good goal for you and not necessarily this massive celebrity, Beyonce, Taylor Swift, all of these people trying to kind of live up to their standards. I also think that people who really, really believe in the fact that, I'm being tested, they're going to keep being tested because that's what they believe. So it's kind of shifting your mindset into again, I like to do it very tactically. And so what is my goal? What am I going to do today? How am I going to have a good day? And that's how I just kind of keep pushing forward and living truly, again, like the Beyonce of lives that I want to personally live.
Right. I like that. And structuring your mindset, right? They talk a lot about that.
I also think too that people always think that every single day is going to be a great day. And as we talked about, it's not. We're adults and life is hard, and doing the tasks that we know we need to do are hard. Nobody likes to do their taxes, but we do them. We figure out a way to do them and we keep on moving forward. So I think that getting past the idea of like, this is a hard task, this is a task that I don't want to do, and just figuring out a way to do it anyway will help you live a better life. It's actually really interesting that a lot of us blame external blockers for the reason why we can't do things. Like, why did life throw me this curveball? Why is this, person in the office really chatty? I can't get my work done. Why, when I'm home, my kids, I always have to leave to go help them and I can't get work done. I'm too tired at night. I can't start my side hustle, whatever it is. And we always blame those external blockers, but that actually are triggers. That actually only makes up for 10% of the reason why people can't push past their goals. The other 90% is actually internal. So I'm not strong enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I don't feel ready. I need to wait for motivation. All of these, I didn't come from a bad upbringing. My life was too easy. I can't succeed. All of these things that people will blame themselves for are the reason actually why people don't achieve their goals and why people always think that, life is hard. But if you can just push past those hard moments, yes, it's hard. It is definitely hard. We can all achieve kind of those goals and those dreams that we're pushing forward to.
All right. That was beautiful to end on. I really appreciate that aspect and you sharing the realities of life, helping us to embrace the realities of life and being more cognizant about those internal factors that really do hinder our capabilities. And once we get past that or get through that, not past it, but actually work our way through it and find our way through it, then we will be able to unlock our fullest potential.
Thank you for joining us on Proactive is the Way. I hope you enjoyed our discussions today with Tarra Stubbins and Brian Sachetta. In the description, I have provided details on how to connect with our guests and learn more about them. All right, folks, that's a wrap. Up next, the tangential mind. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Mental Health Awareness Month was established to increase awareness of the importance of mental health and wellness in our lives and to celebrate recovery from mental illness. One of the primary goals is to increase awareness about the vital role mental health plays in our overall health and well-being and provide resources and information to support individuals and communities who may need mental health support. To learn more about mental health and acquire assistance, please visit the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration at findsupport.gov. Join us in 2 weeks as we kick off our next series on the laws of human nature. We are going to focus on another one of Ray's principles about understanding people and how we are wired differently. Ray shared that because of the different ways that our brains are wired, we all experience reality differently, and any single way can be viewed with a different lens that may appear distorted to those looking at it from their point of view. Well, this reminds me of the madman story. I first saw this story on Facebook at YouGoWire Billy TV. The individual who posted it, his name was Wallo Ziei. It's a story about a man who was concerned with why people thought he was mad. So he wanted to better understand, well, why do people think I'm mad? And he posed the following question. Just because I don't see things the way other people do, does that make me a madman? And the person he asked stated, well, no. And so he bent down, wrote a lowercase m in the sand, and asked the person what he wrote. And from where this person was standing, he said, well, that's an M. And he responds, well, you only see an M because of the angle at which you are looking at it. If you turn it upside down, you'll see a W. And if you look from this angle, it could be a 3. And if you look at it from this angle, it can be an E. And so the man concluded, well, the fact that I don't see things at the perspective that everyone else is seeing it doesn't make me a mad man. And so this is a learning lesson to us all, right? Life is all about perspective and making sure that we are cognizant that we are all just wired very differently and being more open and receptive to our differences and finding a way to effectively leverage these differences within our lives as we are making decisions can be so helpful. So last season, we actually helped with this, right? By reading the 6 thinking hats. And if you missed it, that episode, check out season 1, episode 15 and 16, titled Get Your Mind Right. And we also checked out Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence Them, in season 1 as well, episode 24 and 25, A Guiding Team. And so this information, that we provided last year, it was so helpful. But as I was digesting these pieces of literature, I wanted to hone in on how to simplify this process of understanding our thought process, how to effectively engage each other, and just overall our human behavior. Is there a code, a rule, a law within behavior that unifies us to make this process easier? Well, apparently, there are some laws that may possibly exist. And over the next 3 months, we are going to learn about the laws of human nature, a book by Robert Greene, and garner an understanding that no matter our color, gender, or socioeconomic class, there are some key unifying traits in which we all possess. And we will learn more about these traits to continue on this journey of knowing why people do what they do. And as the author, Robert Greene, shares, how to leverage this information to learn how to detach ourselves from our own emotions and master self-control. We are going to learn how to leverage this information to develop the empathy that leads to insight and be able to look effectively behind people's masks, and how to recognize these traits to differentiate ourselves and develop our own singular sense of purpose. And why is this so important, you might ask? Well, because our very lives depend on relationships with people, and possessing these pearls of wisdom is one of the most important gems that we can have within our treasure chest to serve as tactics for success, self-improvement, and even self-defense. We look forward to you joining us. And in preparation for our discussions, please visit Kinky Knots Cafe's approved book list to pick up a copy of the book, The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. Details are enclosed in the description. To access all replays or learn more about Kinky Knots Cafe's Proactive is the Way, please visit www.kinkyknotscafe.com. Proactive is the way, my friends. Take good care.